Those in relationships, what's the craziest thing you've done when you saw someone hitting on your significant other? I beat the crap out of the pick-me girl. I am a professional boxer. My husband has also been training in combat sports for over a decade. After we got together, he took me to his training gym where I met his female training partner who had been training with him for many years. She was the biggest pick-me I've seen in my life. On the first day, I stood quietly in a skirt, watching them train. She came over and warmly asked, "Why don't you train with us?" He likes girls who are into sports. I smiled and replied, "No thanks." During the training, she constantly partnered with him and chatted with him during breaks. My husband, then boyfriend, ignored her and walked over to me asking if I was bored waiting. I shook my head and told him that he looked really handsome while boxing. She followed us and put her arm around his shoulder, looking at me and saying, "We are all about violence. You probably don't like all this fighting and killing." She then positioned herself between me and my husband, turned away from me and started asking him some boxing technique questions. My husband was getting a bit annoyed at this point, but he didn't want to be rude, so he told her they could discuss it later after the break. She turned around, seeming to notice me for the first time, and said, "Ah, I see you probably don't understand what we're talking about and find it boring, right?" I remained silent with a cold expression on my face. Later, my husband decided to change partners during the break. She exaggeratedly said to me, "Are you really jealous of this too? It's just a normal training process. We don't mind male or female partners. We've been training like this for over a decade. Don't be so petty." I was getting infuriated, but I couldn't find the right way to confront her. My husband noticed I was upset, so he stopped training and we went home. In another encounter at the supermarket, she once again pushed me aside and held onto my husband, chatting incessantly. I decided to walk away to buy some snacks. My husband finally got away from her, saying he needed to check on what I was doing. She followed him, saw the snacks in my hands, and exclaimed, "Oh, how can you eat such junk food? It's so unhealthy. We boxers have strict discipline and never eat this stuff." I replied, "I love to eat what I like." Then she started messaging my husband from time to time. I was naturally angry and told my husband not to respond to her messages. He was quite helpless, saying, "She's asking me about training techniques, I can't just ignore her. We've known each other as teammates for so many years." Every time she saw me at the gym, she made a point to say, "We only talk about training in our messages. Don't worry about it." During training, she would cling to my husband, touching his shoulder and waist, using the excuse of correcting his training movements. My patience was nearly at its limit. Once, when I accompanied my husband to the gym and changed into sportswear, intending to train with them, she started her act again. Since she had been training at this gym for many years, she always led the warm-up exercises. She deliberately made the warm-up more difficult and intense than usual, making everyone exhausted, gasping for breath. Afterwards, she ran over to me and proudly said, "This intensity is just ordinary for us, the actual training will be even tougher. It's normal for you to find it hard at the beginning. You'll get used to it with more practice." I smiled and replied, "I'm not tired. I just think this warm-up is not scientifically sound." She got angry and pulled my husband's arm, saying, "She doesn't know anything but acts like she knows everything." My husband patted her arm down and said, "My girlfriend is a professional boxer." She looked confused and I said, "I will also be boxing today. I'll use one of your punching bags." She was surprised and excited, suggesting we spar in a real fight that day, but I didn't want to do that and told her I didn't feel like it. She began insulting me, saying, "I get it. Most girls who do boxing just want to look good. They're timid and weak. Afraid of real combat. Very few girls are like me, tough like a man, not afraid of getting hit." Then she laughed. I got annoyed and decided to fight her to shut her up. I told her, "Fine, let's do it." She condescendingly said, "Don't worry, I'll take it easy on you." My husband saw that I was genuinely upset and didn't know how to deal with her constant pestering. He helped me put on my boxing gloves and mouth guard and gently said, "Don't get too angry. Just open up your heart and spar, but be gentle." When the fight started, she came at me like a madwoman, throwing heavy punches. What happened to taking it easy on me? I dodged and evaded, occasionally asking her, "Why are you so aggressive?" She ignored me and kept on attacking with full force. It was evident that she wanted to bully the weak. If I were a complete beginner, she would have beaten me badly. Eventually, she went too far and I had enough. I stopped being defensive and started to counterattack. Although I didn't go all out, I did hit her hard enough to make it painful. She didn't last a minute against me. She had trained for a long time and thought she could bully others, so I just gave her a small lesson. Since she wanted to act like a tough woman and one of the boys, I dealt with her like how I would treat a guy. After I gave her a beating, she finally stopped bothering me for a while. However, soon after she brought someone who was just as bad as her. After defeating the pick-me, I strangely felt a bit guilty, as if I had used unfair means to bully her. Luckily, I was busy in preparation for a competition for a period, so I hadn't accompanied my partner to his boxing gym for a long time. After about half a year, the competition came to an end, and after repeated requests from my partner, I visited the gym again. This time that girl's husband was there. It turned out she was married with 2 children. I really don't understand why she still tried to flirt with my partner. I soon learned that her husband used to be the coach of both her and my partner. After she was beaten by me last time, she must have gone home and complained about it. So this time, as soon as her husband saw me, he provocatively came over and explicitly said he wanted to have a match with me under the guise of sparring. Looking at his 80-kilogram physique and his 6-foot build, I was reluctant. Boxing matches are divided into weight classes, and with my small build, it was a bit risky to fight a big guy who had animosity toward me. Then that girl started mocking me. My damn pride got the best of me, and I got heated. Let's fight. Initially my partner didn't agree and I repeatedly persuaded him, this person was your former coach and he is still coaching at this club. The head coach and other assistant coaches are present today. He wouldn't dare to go too far. The head coach, a highly respected martial arts master with white hair, had known my partner since he was young. Although he was no longer coaching competitive athletes and only played with kids, he was still a revered figure. The other 2 assistant coaches were experienced former combat athletes, one of whom had participated in many world-class competitions, and the other was a current referee. All 3 of them were mentors. My partner had known them for many years and could be fully trusted. So I successfully persuaded my partner, and in the presence of the 3 coaches, I stepped into the boxing ring with her husband despite him having a clear advantage in weight and training experience. But his physical stamina was definitely inferior to mine. I chose a strategy of endurance. Keep a distance, and stay in the safe zone, move back and forth, harass him with feints, disrupt his rhythm, and drain his energy, then seize the opportunity to explode with punches, striving for each punch to be precise. When there was a chance, I would follow up with combinations. After a fight, I would retreat and not engage in close combat with him. Since he had never competed before and was older, his reactions were clearly not as fast as mine. He was slow and lacked speed, and I was able to hit him quite easily. He also managed to hit me, causing some damage, but I could handle it. I have a naturally sturdy chin. I had been training with boxers for a long time, so my ability to take hits was decent. As time went on, his physical stamina dropped rapidly while I maintained a stable performance. It was evident to the naked eye that he was becoming increasingly enraged, huffing and puffing, his whole body tensing up to strike every punch. I became more cautious and careful not to let him get close to me. The 3 coaches on the sidelines also intervened, telling him not to go too far, but the risk of injury to me was not significant, so the match wasn't interrupted from the perspective of pure training. It was a very good real combat opportunity. Throughout the confrontation, I was very calm, cautious. Full of fighting spirit, but not reckless. I was freely moving around, mainly because he was so slow, and accurately hitting him whenever the chance arose. But then a turning point came. Birds of a feather flock. How could the husband of the tomboy be a normal person? I was too naive, really. Who would have expected him to be so shameless? Feeling embarrassed by being beaten by me, he resorted to a dirty trick in front of everyone. When I got close to him, he grabbed my neck with one hand and wildly pounded the back of my head with the other. I had no defense against such a cheap shot. I was knocked down directly. This guy had no martial ethics at all. The 3 coaches rushed over to check if I was injured. In reality, I was fine. I was just taken aback. Being lifted up by the old grandpa and stretched, taking deep breaths, I looked around for my partner. With the human wall of the 3 coaches outside the gap, I saw my partner beating her husband like crazy. Compared to that guy, my partner was taller, stronger, younger, and more experienced in combat. That guy had no power to fight back at all. After the coaches checked on me and found that I was indeed fine, they hesitated for a while before intervening to break up the fight. At this point, that guy's face was covered in blood from being beaten by my partner. Later we had a serious conversation. The 3 coaches took turns criticizing him for committing a serious foul. That girl chimed in, "It's clearly your fault. Why did you hit so hard?" Her husband actually agreed with his wife's words, nodding repeatedly. "We agreed to spar, but you hit too hard, so I didn't follow the rules." The old man was amused. "You've never competed in your life, so you thought it was too hard." Her moves were completely within the norm for a boxer. "Are you made of glass? You are so big, yet you can't handle the punches of a girl weighing a little over 50 kilograms. The other 2 coaches directly suggested that he be banned from coaching at the gym. This guy was reluctant to apologize to me. There was no follow-up after that. From then on, both he and that girl avoided us like ghosts whenever we were at the gym.